Q, double click left white dot, V, drag into position. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. This is the L arm, right arm, R leg, L leg, head. Raptor doesn't have any decoration. That's a pedantic issue. There's really not a whole lot you can do about this without a good amount of work, I'll say that much. But for the purposes of this exercise, I should wait on the decoration till later, but anyway. So we have head. Doesn't have any detail in there yet. Jaw. We'll eventually have body decoration. And now we got this empty, kind of set up template character that we could use to animate with. I think its head's a little bit too big. But now we have to ask the question kind of like, well, how big is this thing? Give it a little bit of perspective. In barbftr world, we probably should have done that in the beginning, but we didn't. So, we know how big the player victim clips are. So let's go to the victim layer. I'm going to drag one of these. Inside of the Monster Maker kit, there's a player stuff folder. This is important. The player stuff folder contains something called Vic clips. It also says that you should use these in vor animations. These are the only things you should use, is stuff in the Vic clips folder. So you've got player stuff and Vic clips. Let's use, let's see. There's the body, hit tight, tight bottom, tight top, Vic head. And there's combination ones that you're more familiar with. Like the actual just barb being hit look. These are clips you can use. The way this works is this victim clip is pretty much in all the vor animations. And if you go into it, it's made of two pieces, the head and the body. If you go into the body, you'll notice that on each frame, it's the different frame for the victim. So it's possible to add different victims without changing the movie clips in somewhere else. Because in code, these are put on the correct frames when they're loaded. So that's how that works. We can do that later. But for now, Barb's way too tiny. So how big does she need to be to make this make sense? If she was 200% larger, then she's about that big. If I have player idle, I can drag that over. I'm not going to use it, but just for scaling purposes. So that's how big Barb is in comparison to the raptor. Looks like we did our job pretty well. You can then, at this point, correct all the scaling for your poor creature, or just know what the scaling of Barb is. If you model the creature, all you need to know is how big Barb is at this point. Barb is at 200% scale for this monster. I mean, if I wanted to make the monster smaller, I could scale up Barb, and there you go. 300%, 250%. There's no real guide other than you need to keep track of that number. I might do this at 250% just to prove a point. So info-wise. So there. That's what that should look like. Barb is now at 250% scale. Since we've done that work, we'll move that over here, because you can left drag on keyframes around in the timeline. This is important to know. We haven't done any animation yet. Let's see. So there are requirements. If you notice in the how-to guide, all enemies must have, facing forward is left to right. Okay, good, good. An idle, walk, death, dead, hit, 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 attack, attack animations. All these animations need to exist. So how do we do that? Well, up here in our frames layer that we've created, left-click on the frame, and you'll notice there's something down here called frame label under properties. The properties frame label is where you do this. Idle. Has to match case. Do not use uppercase letters if you can avoid it. You're just going to cause problems for me and everyone else. These must match exactly. Idle, walk, death, dead. So there's idle. Insert blank keyframe. Walk. Death. Dead. Death. Insert blank keyframe. Dead. Right click. Insert blank keyframe. Hit low. Right click. Insert blank keyframe. Hit medium. And so on and so forth. You can also copy paste these from something like Lizzie and not have to do as much work, but, you know, for the purposes of demonstration. Attack low. ATKM. Right click ATKH. It looks nice, but we don't have anything going on. Because on each of these keyframes, or each of these frames has to have certain code. Unfortunately, I don't have a good example of this other than looking at something like Lizzie, which we also have a custom enemy template that has a good example of all this stuff that I'm in the progress of making. But let's look at Lizzie, since that's more realistic. Barb fighter enemies. Lizzie enemy. Lizzie. So when you poke around in Lizzie, it's a good idea to do this at one point, because you can see what the heck has been going on. You'll notice that these layer names are pretty much the same. If I hide them, well, not a whole lot going on there. But we have these frame names and little A symbols up here. These mean there's actions. If you right-click on one of these frames and go to Actions, now you can have this little Actions panel floating if you want. To make panels floating in Flash, drag the upper left corner of them, and you can make them snap and stuff. Handy. There's a bunch of code in Lizzie. You're going to have to learn to look at this. But the tutorial really only requires this. If you're on the idle frame, this has to be called. Okay, well, might as well do the boring work, huh? Idle. Left-click the idle keyframe, G-act idle. Go back to Lizzie. What's she have in her walk? G-act move. Move, and so on. Now, the template that I'm working on has a little bit more description of what the heck's going on. Use this to indicate an idle animation in code. Doing nothing. Okay, let's use that instead, because that seems more intelligent. Template, walk. Use this to indicate there is a moving animation. The second argument is the speed. Our raptor is 4. In this case, 4. Death animation. Being hurt, stop digestion, unconsumed player. Act busy, act unbusy. Dead. Act hurt. Constantly. Hit high. Hit medium, hit low. MC monster. Hit low. Oh, this is a knockback. We're not going to get knocked back. We're a raptor. Hit medium. Hit high. This has to be there. Luckily, you can just copy paste from one of these templates. It's not a big deal. Attack low. It should be fairly straightforward as well. Attack medium. It looks like this Lizzie's using one of the newer techniques. Because the engine calls these 3 attacks. Attack low, attack medium, attack high. And if you want, in code, you can run code to check on what to do and then go to your own attack animations, meaning you're not limited at all. You can also constantly check for the player doing stuff and move them around as needed. It's flexible. It ain't RX-8, but it's certainly better than it was. People only care about the animations anyway, so this ought to satiate some of that. Oh no. Paste, Control X, Control V. That's what we got. We got a low attack, a medium attack, a high attack, and they go to these other animations. Attack low normal. This is a smart way to do it. I strongly recommend it. Attack medium normal. Attack H normal. That way if your character is taking damage, it can change the attacks it's doing and all that good stuff. So you can still pretend that this is a game at some level. So, we've covered the first part of the basics. You'll notice, though, in Oliver template and Lizzie... Where'd you go, Lizzie? No. Water. And there's these extra frames at the end of each animation. Lots of them look like this. Go play idle. Go play walk. Go play idle. So, when you get to the end of animation, it tells it what to go to next. That's pretty important, because if you forget that, your character's going to act extremely broken. So, let's put some end markers. No, where'd you go? Right-click, insert blank keyframe. Go to and play idle. Pretty simple. I'll copy from the template, because it's more clear on this. So these little markers mark the end of an animation. Not very clear from an instant observation standpoint, but them's the breaks. Idle. At this point, we still haven't made any animations. You may note attack left, attack medium, already go to and play something else. Attack normal should exist, and then something will go happen. We'll go play idle. Play idle. So yeah, you could have just copied and pasted from the template, but it's good to know that that's how that's built. So one thing we're missing is a collision box. This is required by all the characters and tells the system where the heck and how big you are. This is nothing more than an instance of collision box with the name cbox, which is over here in bases. There's collision squares for attack, collision, and special. It's good to keep those consistent. Don't mix them up, just for sanity. Copy Lizzie's collision box. Make monster. Block all my layers, unlock the cbox layer, click on the keyframe, paste. Double left click this colored square and you can change the color of the layer. Since this is the collision box, it's going to be blue. Now I can resize this thing to fit my raptor a little bit better. It's a good idea to center it. It doesn't have to be. It can actually move all over the place. I like even numbers. Let's make it 140. So you could get that close. Make it wider. You can actually resize it during the animation, and it'll cause all sorts of interesting problems that are kind of cool. Lizzie does this when she jumps around, so... cbox. Is the instance name cbox? Exactly, yes. Good. That's what we were requiring. Good. So cbox exists. I have animations, and they can play back to each other. So at this point, we can actually test our character. For the purposes of the demonstration, I'm going to use the victim layer to prove that this is actually doing what it's supposed to. So I'm going to click over here on my text tool and be like, idle. We're gonna show that this is actually working. Insert keyframe, walk. Right click, insert keyframe, def. So that'll change at least on the animation and all that. Hit.